Hello manga and anime lovers, I'm Branch, and today I'm going to be talking about episode 5 of Days with My Stepsister. Now this episode was a lot slower than the other ones, but it feels like it's starting the next story arc, I guess you could say, of the show. And I think I read that this episode started adopting the second light novel. They said the title changed to match the colors, and I thought that was kind of cool, but that just confirms my suspicions, because we have finished the introductory story arc where we get to know Yuta and Saki and their relationship and how they see other people and how they interact with each other and change gradually as they grow to know each other more. And Saki, surprisingly, is the one who changes the most, the fastest. Yuta is also changing, but he is pushing against it way more than Saki is. Whereas Saki is a lot more oblivious of her feelings, Yuta is straight up pushing against it. And you can tell by the way he acts not just with Saki, but with his senpai Shiori. And Shiori is the main character of this episode, because episode 5 highlights her relationship with Yuta and places her as a very powerful rival for Saki. Now the main plot of this episode is that Shiori and Yuta go to see a movie, which by the way is gorgeously animated by the studio, and the backgrounds in the movie look almost like a real movie. Outstanding, 10 out of 10. And through this quote-unquote date, you can see Shiori's feelings moving to the surface that she's been suppressing, and she almost confesses at the very end, but not quite, and then her and Saki meet at the very tail end of the episode. Now, just like all the other episodes of this series, it relies heavily on you as a viewer picking up on emotional cues from how the characters are acting, almost like in real life. So, for example, Shiori is constantly quizzing Yuta throughout their date, not directly, but trying to gain information on his sister, and she might not even be aware of it, but she's asking like, oh, shouldn't you tell your sister you're on a date? Shouldn't you do this or that? And Yuta just dismisses her because he's trying to ignore his own feelings, even if they're just familial. But you can almost see Shiori become more happy as Yuta not dismisses, but downplays his relationship with Saki. And this is obviously, as we find out at the end of the episode, because she loves Yuta very much. In one of my favorite scenes by the vending machine, when she repeats a line from the movie saying she only has 6 months left to live, and Yuta, without skipping a beat, doesn't believe her and says the line that the protagonist of the movie says, and you can tell in that instant that she's done. She's fallen way too hard. She's not coming back out of this one. And I think it's because Yuta has this sense of trust with his senpai that he doesn't have with a lot of other people. And maybe that's because she's his senpai and she's taught him a lot of work, or because she's so playful around him and teasing that he's able to let his guard down. She's probably the only person in this show where Yuta is relaxed around. Like, he's not even this relaxed around his own family, his own dad. And you can see the stark contrast in how he treats Saki when they meet at the end. And he's carrying on with Shiori while Saki is just watching. And you can see the emotions flickering behind Saki's eyes and her thought processes, and how she's trying to figure out what's going on here. She looks at the help wanted sign at the very end, and I can almost guarantee she's going to try and get hired at this bookstore, if only to get on even footing with Shiori. Now, the main unfortunate undertone of this episode is that we know Shiori cannot win. Saki is the main character, or the secondary main character, so she is going to wind up winning, which means that Shiori is going to become a losing heroine and join all the other girls in that show. But on a serious note, she's already given up, basically. You can see after the vending machine interrupts their confession, which was brilliantly set up, by the way, all the courage she built up from that rush of adrenaline she got when Yuta replied correctly to her prank, or her test probably is a better way to say it. She loses that drive, and she goes right back to how she was before. At the end of the episode, she's constantly complimenting Saki, so she's trying to push Saki and Yuta together. Even if she doesn't know that they're romantically involved yet, she is trying to push herself away from Yuta. And I find that very sad. And I think I'm going to be depressed later in this series if it continues on like this, but I'm too deep in now to turn back. It's also worrying that Shiori relates to this movie a whole lot. She really likes it, and yet the main girl character has only 6 months left to live, and she makes that same statement toward the end of the episode. And it makes me think I really hope she doesn't have like a critical condition or something else that will separate her and Yuta forcibly in any span of time. It doesn't have to be 6 months for her to relate to it. But I can feel a little bit of foreshadowing in there, and I really hope I'm misreading it. Now, the only thing I have left to talk about is Yuta. He's the final piece in this gigantic puzzle, and he is the most stubborn to fit in place. He is gradually warming up to Saki, but unlike Saki, who in her mind understands that she's getting close to Yuta and she doesn't like it, Yuta does not understand that he's getting close to Saki. He is in full denial mode right now. He constantly says that he and Saki aren't that close. He doesn't bother texting Saki that he's going to be home late. He does put a blanket on Saki when he comes home, which makes me think that Saki was waiting for him on the couch or something. But it will take something as drastic as it took for Saki to realize her feelings. So Saki will have to either save his life or something very terrible will have to happen. Someone dying for him to be able to understand that he's not a complete stranger to these people right now. And I really hope it happens sooner rather than later, because the longer it's pushed off, the more terrible the outcome will be. Really love this episode. Again, animation gorgeous, sound effects gorgeous. I really like the environments in this season, especially this episode in particular, for the cities and everything. It feels so real, even though I've never been there. It reminds me of a lot of places like New York. And I don't know what they did different from other shows, but they just did something different, and it's so good. That being said, I'll see you all next time, hopefully. Bye.